What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Rewatch. We've got George and Max here. We're going to be talking about What If, the first animated TV series in the MCU, as well as the first sort of anthology type story that they're telling. So let's get into it. George, what do you think?
This one's, I think with the anthology aspect, you get something that you can't really say about any other MCU project thus far, and that's the series is a mixed bag. I think there are episodes with great concepts and great executions. I think there are episodes with great concepts that sort of fall a little bit flat. And then there are episodes that, if I weren't watching the series all the way through, I would probably, there's a chance I would skip over them. They're ones that I wouldn't necessarily say, hey, I got half an hour to kill. Let's watch an episode of What If. So I like the series on the whole, but it did drop in my MCU rankings with this viewing. So again, largely a mixed bag.
Yeah, I think it actually dropped for me too, which I think is interesting. Like you said, it has really great ideas. I don't think any of the episodes that they presented to us necessarily had bad concepts. I think it was just the execution was probably a little bit off, or at least it wasn't fully fleshed out. But I think let's talk about some of the ones that hit the mark and even exceeded them. I think T'Challa Star-Lord.
Absolutely. My favorite episode.
Fantastic. Doctor Strange.
Probably the consensus best episode.
Probably the best episode. I mean, beautiful episode. And then the last two episodes, I think, that sort of served as a bookend, and it felt a lot like the Infinity War and Endgame, sort of part one and part two.
On both a
type deal,
a smaller and larger scale, because you're dealing with a smaller team. It's a much smaller team, but you're facing this multiversal threat of Vizsant, or Ultron if he won, but I prefer my term of Vizsant. It's Vision apostrophe T in case you need the full spelling. So yeah, those episodes in particular, those four that you mentioned, really hit the mark. They're fun viewing experiences. They tell really great stories. I think you can look at each episode of the show overall as its own short film. And I'm really getting into short films now with my grad school. By the way, I'm in film school. Haven't mentioned that in a couple weeks. The 3 or 4 episodes that you mentioned just now, really looking at episodes 8 and 9 as one longer short film.
That's right.
It's really a clinic in storytelling in short order, because with the other MCU TV series we've had so far, that's long form storytelling. That's like, limited series, mini series, that type of, we're going to tell a story that probably could be a movie, but instead of in 120 minutes, we're going to tell it in 350 minutes. It stretches out to build the world, like WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, Loki. These shows stretch the story, which really works for the way that they're told. What If, again, the episodes, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think any of them is longer than 35, 40 minutes.
No, I don't think so.
And with the exception of the last two, it's all self-contained. You're not going to see Captain Carter in the episode where Killmonger rescues Tony Stark. You're not going to see T'Challa Star-Lord in the zombie episode. So I think what's as we've been saying this whole time, it's the biggest strength and probably the biggest weakness of the series that it is told as an anthology. Because when it hits the mark, like it does in those 4 episodes, it really hits the mark. It's some of the top tier storytelling in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm not afraid to say that. But when it misses the mark, even on high concept episodes like Captain Carter or Zombies or What If Earth Lost Its Mightiest Heroes, these are pretty high concept episodes that just fall a little flat for me. And it detracts, as much as the other episodes that we've talked about raise this show up, there are as many episodes that drag this show down.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. It's a lot of fun. And the 4 episodes that we've been talking about are, I mean, they are so good.
If each one of those were a movie, it would be a
Yeah.
movie that I've seen, 4 or 5 times by now.
Yeah, I mean, especially the last 2, put them together. That was Doctor Strange, episode 4. If that was a full movie, goodness, that's quite a story that you're
If that
telling
were
right
the
there.
Doctor Strange movie we got in 2016,
Yeah.
yeah, this series, I mean, just technically speaking, choosing to go animated when you've got the CGI and visual effects budget of God, it's certainly a choice. And the animation, it's very polarizing because there are some people who love it, some people who really don't. And I'm one of the people who finds it absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that the way that they drew these characters is true to form for how they look, how the actors look in each of the projects that they're doing a unique new spin on. But it really just feels like animation I haven't seen before. It's a style that, maybe I'm just falling behind on my animated viewings, but it's just so unique and fresh, and it allows the viewer to take in the story in a way that really enhances what's being said.
Yeah, it is so original, and I think it it feels really integrated with the stories. Like it makes sense, because I think a lot of times the CGI can maybe even take you out of the story a little bit, but when it's fully animated, you can get away with a lot more. I think that's what's great about this. I mean, I'm thinking of the T'Challa Star-Lord episode when they're meeting with the Collector and some of the movement, right? Like it wouldn't it wouldn't work as well, I don't think, if it was live action. But you're able to bend and move characters and the environments around them in ways that are really interesting and unique to an animated platform. And that's what this show does really well. I mean, it's a lot like when the new Lion King remake came out, and everyone was talking about the uncanny valley and how maybe things were a little bit too realistic, right? Like everything looked amazing, and nobody can take that away from the film, but it took away some of the really beautiful emotions that Simba especially could provide on the screen in the animated version, and you get that in What If, which is great.
Yeah, I think the animation is just gorgeous in its capability of delivering artwork on top of the story. Again, as you said, you get to do things that you might not get to do in a live action film. That allows you to tell more unique stories, like with all of the pods moving around in the T'Challa Star-Lord episode, or the Embers of Genesis in that episode. a giant plant exploding over an entire celestial head.
Yeah.
Or in even the first episode with Captain Carter, you get the true champion of Hydra, or whatever Schmidt calls it, the giant tentacled other
Yeah.
dimensional being. It's just so, the animation on its own is so striking, but then you get all of these new ideas that you're able to create through that animation that I think strengthens this show.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line, if you're gonna watch this show, you should watch all the episodes.
Yeah.
It does tie together, and it's important for the last two. But they're good stories, really interesting, and I think the direction that maybe we might we might have wanted to see might be not the same as you, and that's okay. But it's a really great story, sort of across the 9 episodes, even though they are more episodic. Let's get into some rankings and ratings. George, you want to start us off?
Yeah. So our conversation might have raised this up for me, but the number that I'm going to say is where it was at the beginning of this episode, which did drop from my last viewing. I'm going to put it 22 out of the 32 projects in the MCU. And then I'm going to give it a bottom of the B range score of an 80 out of 100. I think, AC Bradley does a really good job. We haven't even talked about Jeffrey Wright as the Watcher. I'm so excited to see what they do with that character, whether they can bring him into live action. We're going to find out in less than a week, because we are going to see some of these characters from Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, from What If in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We're going to see, I wish, and I say this every time we bring up T'Challa, but I wish we could see T'Challa Star-Lord and Chadwick Boseman bring that character to life in live action. But we're going to see probably Strange Supreme. I think that's almost a given at this point. We're going to see Captain Carter, probably. Maybe we'll see the Killmonger variant from the Pocket Dimension at the end of the show. Maybe we'll see Zombie Wanda, the Ultron Sentries. This show does a good job, as good or better of a job, of setting up the multiverse than does Loki or WandaVision. So yeah, those are my scores. Over to you.
Yeah, I'm a little bit lower, actually. I'm going to put it at 23 out of 32. I do think that with the strength of the 4 episodes that we talked about, it could absolutely rise up in my rankings, but who knows? Maybe it won't. And for a rating out of 100, also going to be a little bit lower. I'm giving it a pretty high C+, 77 out of 100. I think it definitely gets brought down by the weaker episodes. Party Thor is one that I'm going to cite. It was a lot of fun. And
the only one we haven't talked about yet.
But I think probably for good reason. But
True.
It didn't really feel like there was a payoff until the end. And that's fine, right? Not every episode needs to be an A+. There's going to be misses, and that's totally fine. But episodes like that brought it down. So 77 out of 100, 23 out of 32. You heard George's rating and ranking. That's going to do it for us tonight from the Rewatch. We're going to come back at you tomorrow talking about Shang-Chi, one of the first new characters that we're getting in Phase 4. So should be fun. Let's get into it tomorrow. See ya.
Bye.